The first time Michael tried on the suit, it was kind of like, he's back.
It's showtime.
The portal is open and Beetlejuice is back, along with the Dietz family, joined by Jenna Ortega as Lydia's daughter, Astrid. To clothe his larger-than-life and afterlife world, Tim Burton turned to his longtime collaborator, four-time Oscar-winning costume designer Colleen Atwood.
Hi, I'm Colleen Atwood, the costume designer for Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. I've done many films over the years. Tim and I have a real shorthand. We've worked together on many things. We're making our own rules, we're making our own worlds, and us pushing each other in a new direction was really the most exciting thing, and working with the cast, who I'd always admired. For me, the characters are the world. You start with them and you make them who they are. In approaching Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, I looked to the first movie, of course, for the things that are expected, starting with Beetlejuice.
Not to mention the fact that you're talking to a dead guy. Now what do you think?
He was the main thing that was iconic. The original designer was a woman named Maggie Rogers, so keeping with the influence of her costumes, we used a really beautiful 4-ply silk satin fabric from a company called Tironi in Italy. Michael really wanted to feel like he was a little bit older, so we kind of like broke down the clothes so they looked a little more old man-y. Even though it was Beetlejuice, it felt a little less hyper real. Beetlejuice's other main costume is his wedding tuxedo, which we manufactured in a little bit different wool fabric than the initial one was. We kind of kept to the same vibe of that tux because it just looks like a rent-a-tux, which is kind of the idea. He has a couple little surprise changes within the story that we kind of had fun with.
With so many characters and so much to create, pre-production, the planning process before a movie begins filming, is when Atwood begins crucial collaborations with the director and actors.
My process with Tim is not like a lot of discussions, intellectualizing about story and character and all that, and I sort of just show him my fabrics, my ideas. He just says, go for it. With each actor, we sort of figure out their clothing and their character, whether it's Catherine or Winona or Jenna, because we sort of know what set they're going to be on, what they're going to be doing in the costume, because you have a script that you're working off of. In the art department, they start before us. They sort of show you the colors that the rooms are and things like that. And I don't look at one color for one person. I look at all the colors together and I apply them. Kind of diffused 70s colors. There's scenes in it with Soul Train and with different things where it's very hearkening to another time. And the sort of lighting and the elements of the underworld measured into that in a way that it all looked good that way.
Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice, Beetlejuice.
Well, Winona's very stylish in a really low-key way, so we had a fun time collaborating with different things. She was very key on sort of keeping that vibe of somebody that wasn't comfortable in their clothes. Her first costume she wore when she has her TV show, this really great 80s dress with a cinched waist. It looked like a cheap old horror costume, and we love that. And then as she goes along, her casual wear is a real nod to Victorian sort of style with small waist, high collars, sort of very Lydia from the first movie.
Whatever a character feels about clothes, it's a costume designer's job to make sure the actors can move and perform seamlessly in their costumes.
She has super sensitive skin, so we had to do cashmeres and really luxe fabrics on her, kind of keep her comfortable in the clothes. I have a lot of people that help me with fabrics and shopping, so they go out and they see what they find. One of the challenges of it is just being able to find a quality and a fabric that you like, but have enough of it to make 5 costumes out, because a lot of stores now don't carry big quantities of anything. And if you're using antique fabrics, you're really limited in it because there really isn't any more that you can go get. When I get the script initially, I don't break it down per se. I just kind of get a closet sort of idea built up. As I get deeper into it, as I have fittings, we kind of talk together and say, oh, this would be great for this scene, this would be great for that scene, but it's not like it's written in stone. When I initially signed up for this project, the things that I had in mind were making the clothes exciting for people today. So it was really fun to reunite with Winona, who I hadn't seen since Edward Scissorhands. See Jenna again, who I've worked with. They're as odd as Beetlejuice, the whole family. They're all like a puzzle of crazies.
Don't ever say that name.
Beetlejuice.
Jenna and I have a great time together. We did Wednesday Addams together, so we have a comfort zone. We sort of went with her character as somebody that didn't really focus on clothes that much, kind of grunge in a way. Her Halloween costume was a departure from that. She's going as a Halloween date as Marie Curie. So I chose a fabric that looked like it might be radioactive. It kind of glows in the light and in the dark. It's very lightweight, and I knew that she'd be moving a lot, so it moves beautifully. It's a very sheer nylon and metal fabric that's really hard to sew, so the workroom was really happy to see it be finished. The floral dress that Astrid wears once she's met her boy, and she kind of goes over to see him again, so it's a little bit girlier than her other clothes. It's a beautiful old chiffon fabric that I had with little tiny sunflowers on it that I've always loved, but there was just enough to make a dress for Jenna out of it, so it was great. Nice girly look, not as tough as her other stuff. While that was going on, we were looking for stuff for the underworld to see what was out there that we could buy, rent, and acquire to sort of build these characters.
Where is Beetlejuice?
I think the introduction of my corpse person was really a fun element for us because we didn't know how you get the body out of the box with something on it so it wasn't naked, and put it together, and then put together this stitched together person in a bridal dress that was sort of quasi-period. It goes from one color to another. Was really a fun kind of fresh thing in Beetlejuice.
Though they created many new pieces for the movie, Atwood and her team made sure each piece looked lived in, even for the dead.
The sort of technique of making them and aging them and breaking them down was an overall challenge. You wanted to make them exaggerated reality, but you didn't want them to be showy and doll clothes. You wanted them to be real. So it was taking kind of exaggerated fashion a little bit and keeping it toned down and broken down enough so it looked like it's viable, that it could be real people's clothing. There's two routes. You can pre-age the materials and then make the clothes, and then there's making the costume and then taking it and steaming it and adding aging to it with paint to make it feel like it's really been around, which is kind of what we did with the underworld clothes, which are much, much more beat up than the above the ground clothes. You could have fun ways in a sort of quasi-dark humor way of looking at cause of death in a way that you could convey it in costume and makeup, that we were able to have people in the underworld, or they died while they were hiking and they fell off a cliff, or they had a spear through their heads. Could have been in showbiz. We did moms. We did everybody. We sort of all embraced that from the start together and sort of had a great time with it. We had, I think, 200 people that we did that way.
That's 200 out of 2,000 total costumes.
When you're designing for people whose faces are blue and green and different colors of gray, you don't really want to put them in gray costumes much. You want to put them in color to kind of enhance the whole makeup and hair exaggeration that's going on in the room. This job required imagination and fun, which is just like a gift. Thinking outside the box, the main thing was kind of the shrinkers. Their heads aren't where normal heads are. Their arms don't move like normal arms. So we had to do a lot of R&D before we could actually make the costumes. So they didn't have a bump in the back where the actual real person's head was, so they could actually move and see, because their faces are actually where the shirts are. So we had to put mesh in the shirts in order for them to see out when they were acting and running around. Their actual shoulders are on their head with the head, which is an old puppet trick. You know, it's still working. And I needed a lot of fabric to make their costumes, loosely based on Century 21 real estate guys from the 70s. And I said, why don't you look in the upholstery world? Those old 70s bonded fabrics are like upholstery fabrics. And then we found it, and it was like $3 a yard. Not only was it right, but it was really cheap, which was great. Even though Beetlejuice was in the 80s, there's definitely a timeless quality to it. It could be the 50s, it could be the 70s, which is what makes it really special. So you kind of have a lot of latitude, which was my approach to it. I didn't really feel like I had to be stuck in now, and I didn't feel like I had to be stuck in then. I could kind of make my own time with it, and Tim was very supportive of that.
Luckily for Lydia and Astrid, Beetlejuice can be contained and life can settle down.
When the film's finished, the clothes that we've manufactured are all owned by the studio, and they have an archive space they keep it in. And then the rental stock gets returned return to the rental houses. And then there's things that we call expendables, stockings and things like that, and we donate those to theaters or other charities.
But for Colleen Atwood, the next costume adventure is just beginning.
For me as a costume designer, the thing that keeps it exciting is that you never really know what your next project is. You never know what period you're going to be in. You never know who's going to be in it. You never know what's going to be required of you as a designer. You learn stuff all the time as you're designing, and it keeps it fresh and it keeps it alive, which is really one of the things that makes art and life exciting.